Carrie's Legion. Phobos here. Your mission is to infiltrate. What? Yes. I'm your commanding officer. I am. If you don't get back to your objective this instant, stop asking questions.
So dudes, I wanted to make a video talking about the new event mode because I think it's really cool and I think Ubisoft should do more things like it. So if you're not caught up, in the last couple of years or so, Deimos was added to the game as a playable operator, and a year prior to that, he took out Harry. He just ran up and just blasted him, just blasted poor bro away. And a lot of people were really hyping this guy up because this was kind of a return to form, I guess you could say, thematically for the Rainbow Six license. A lot of people were not a fan of the whole, like, ooh, let's pretend that the esports thing is real. It's a real esports tournament in Rainbow Six, right? Like, that fusion of the narrative with what they were trying to do in terms of the multiplayer space was not a good idea. There were components of it that I didn't hate. I liked that the Rainbow Six operators got a little bit more characterization. They got dialogue, like that was cool, but the execution of it left a lot to be desired in my opinion. So the difference here is that this event is a canonical narrative event that is its own separate mode, that has its own rules, that has its own map, that has its own narrative direction and cinematic direction and feel as well. Basically, Deimos has been plotting underneath everybody's noses, and he's been sending people that seem like recruits to Rainbow that are actually a part of his army, his Carrie's Legion. And obviously his goal, as he stated before, is to kill every member of Rainbow. And in this case, he's going to take down Hereford base along with it and just completely wipe the slate clean. That's the objective here. It's a 5v5 TDM mode. It's partitioned into 3 different sections. There's like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. And the Carrie's Legion can win at any point in phases 1, 2, or 3. And Rainbow has a pretty hard mission. A lot of people have pointed out that it's very lopsided in favor of the Carrie's Legion, but I think that's kind of the cinematic point of it all. Rainbow gets a limited amount of reinforcement tickets, and I don't think the idea is that you should be able to play as the same operator twice in the same match. I've seen it. I don't know if that's intentional or not. But the implication is kind of, you know, it's very realistic, right? The idea is if an operator goes down, they're down. Like, they're down for good. So canonically, like, this is a real event that is happening to the Rainbow Six operators. And it adds this sense of urgency to the whole thing that's really exciting and cinematic. The Carrie's Legion kind of just spawn and spawn and spawn and spawn. And it really feels like you're fighting off this faceless, relentless army. The Carrie's Legion don't have very good equipment, right? They have either a UMP that you can put an ACOG on, only a suppressor, or an M1014 shotgun. And they have drones, and you can use like some secondary gadgets, but their kit is very rudimentary. Whenever I get a pick in this mode, it feels very earned because Rainbow Six has all of their gadgetry, right? And that obviously gives them an advantage in certain contexts, but you're also fighting off this horde army. So even though that power differential is there in a 1v1, it still feels earned and it still feels intense. And when you get picks on the Carrie's Legion, oh my gosh, you feel like Deimos' strongest soldier. It's really, really cool. I think that if this was purely a PvE mode, like if you were Team Rainbow and you were just shooting wave after wave of bots just like running into a choke point, it just wouldn't have that same effect. But the fact that you're playing against other players, it's a PvP mode. If I'm popping off on Carrie's Legion, I really feel like I'm punching above my weight class. You know, I'm taking engagements with people who have much better equipment than me. And if I get fried on carries, then it feels deserved, right? It feels earned because you're kind of just human waving at these guys over and over again. And kind of the scary aspect about it is that Rainbow is dealing with this overwhelming force, and they're just trying to pool all their resources as fast as possible to respond to this very real threat that they're facing right now. It's very effective. I think the fact that it is a PvP mode gives it a sense of urgency that you wouldn't have if it was, like I said, just shooting bots. I feel like this is almost the premise that you could have for like an Amazon or an HBO show, you know, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six or whatever, streaming now. You effectively use a gadget against one of the Carrie's Legion guys, and you almost feel like that scene in the TV show or the movie where it's like everybody gets to have their little superpower moment where they do the thing with their thing and it looks cool and it has that kind of power fantasy element to it. I feel like if you were burned by the lore in the past, if you saw the esports stuff that they were doing with Invite, right, with the mock invitational and Harry's arena thing, if you kind of mentally checked out of the game because of that, and you came back and you saw this, I'm not going to say that it would bring you back overnight, but I think it should give a moment of pause to say, oh, wait, okay, they're actually kind of interested in doing something creative and intense, right, proportional to the gravity of what the license is, which is basically, some people think of this as an insult, and I don't think that's fair. But Rainbow Six has always just kind of been Avengers, but it's tactical, right? It's a big global crime fighting team. What if that concept was real, right? What if it was based in reality, analogous to military alliances and coalitions that you see in real life, like NATO? It's always tried to bridge the cultural headspace of, here's the comic book version, right? It's a little bit more fantastical. Here's the more realistic version. This is kind of a little bit more in line with how it is in real life. And there are certain kinds of commentaries that you can do with a story like this that you can't do with a comic book. That's kind of Tom Clancy's whole thing. What if this person was in this place at this time? Could they get ahead of this guy trying to do something weird with a nuke or something? Jack Ryan, right? The whole premise of that is analyst guy who's just kind of a schlub who does paperwork. And then what if he had to put a gun in his hand and do like operator shit? I'm not saying this mode is a one-to-one of that old school style. I know that some people are still like, no matter what happens, no matter what Ubisoft does, they're still gonna complain. But this is pretty close. Like vibe-wise, it's a lot closer than it has been for the past 5 years. This is a very, very different approach to how you run a siege event. The training exercise is no longer, in this context, it's not seen as an analogy for training for Invite. And regardless of what happens here, right, regardless of whether if you and Deimos' goons win the match and you supposedly just wipe Rainbow off of the map, or if Rainbow manages to get away with Deimos by the helicopter at the end, which is very difficult, but I do kind of like that difficulty to add a heightened sense of cinematic feel to it. Regardless of what happens, Hereford base is gone. You cannot queue up for Hereford base in the conventional way that you would normally play Rainbow Six. So, I know people are going to hate me for saying this. It's kind of like deleting Fortnite. Like, remember when Fortnite got deleted? Well, now Hereford base got deleted. How many people are going to say, who cares? It's just the multiplayer component. I don't care. I just want good gameplay. That's a great question, man. There were plenty of people that were still talking about the lore and the narrative when the game was doing the esports stuff. So clearly people want something out of this license. I think that people are starved, especially in live service multiplayer spaces, for a little bit of creativity. So this mode takes the intensity of siege gunfighting, recontextualizes it into a PvP experience, and also adds narrative, which I think is super creative and super interesting. It's not exactly the first of its kind. I know that other live service multiplayer games have done similar things, but this is a clear demarcation between what they were trying to do years ago and what they're trying to do now. I am not setting up a straw man argument, right? If people have valid critiques about, hey, you know, in this environment, I don't know if that's how that would really play out or whatever, that's fine, right? Like, that's critiquing any kind of piece of media. That happens. That happened with Tom Clancy's movies back in the day. There were obviously limits to the truth or the reality of the situation and how it would play out that were hammed up for narrative drama, that were hammed up for TV in Hollywood. That's fine. Those are good faith critiques. And I know from firsthand experience that Ubisoft can handle good faith critique. I've given them good faith critique multiple times. I think the fact that Ubisoft, you know, shot the guy narratively that was responsible for that big narrative mistake, I'm not sure what else they're supposed to do. You know, some people kind of act like Ubisoft is just supposed to atone forever. I think that's silly. I don't think that everybody at Rainbow Six Siege's dev team is responsible personally for all of Ubisoft's problems, right? Like, the Siege people are not responsible for how people are receiving Assassin's Creed. The Siege people are not responsible for whatever happened with Skull and Bones. If there's problems with the Deimos narrative, I think people can be adults and talk about them at their merit without assigning emotional weight to the argument based off of whatever weird cultural space Ubisoft is in terms of gaming YouTube and how irritated people are about whatever XYZ gamer topic. If the weird, wacky Pickle Rick cosmetics are a deal breaker for you, that is valid. If you want a particular kind of artistic flair in your multiplayer environment, people can say, oh, that's dumb, it's only multiplayer. You're still allowed to have that take. That is okay. I'm not going to take that away from you. I will also point out that in this mode, all the skins are default. Just saying, there's no Pickle Rick. It's Siege Doc, the operator Doc. Siege has a lot of flack aimed towards it. Some of it is good faith, some of it is bad faith. Good faith, I think these cosmetics are silly and it looks really weird and it kind of kills the vibe. That's a good faith argument. When you're kind of going on a tangent, what's going on? I'm talking about this because Rainbow Six is a very heavily scrutinized license. And so anytime something comes out for this game and it gets universal praise like this, that's a good sign. That's a sign that Ubisoft needs to do more stuff like this. Like, dude, I've been on gaming YouTube for 10 years, okay? I can see the movements. I can see the waves. I can see where the vibes go. And if you go in the comments section for the Assault on Hereford trailers and you read, you see people getting upvoted all the way to the top saying Ubisoft cooked. Ubisoft is not exactly a company that has been able to avoid getting ratioed. Right? Like, if this was bad, if it was received poorly, they would have gotten ratioed. But they didn't. People are praising Ubisoft for this mode. That's good. That's great. I think that's really something for them to be proud of. Some people have pointed out, Tom Clancy said, I don't want people playing as the bad guy in my video game if my name's on it. I don't know what his opinion was on the video game known as Counter-Strike. Maybe he thought that was bad. I think for a multiplayer game, this is an extenuating circumstance. And I think if he saw that people were reacting to it positively and saying, wow, cool tactical stuff, this is real, this is grounded, this is what Rainbow is all about, maybe he'd change his mind. I don't know. I can't speak for the man personally. What I can surmise is that this versus the Cop Olympics, I think he would have had a much bigger issue with the Cop Olympics than this. So what that's worth to you, I don't know. Anyway, it's a fun event. You should check it out. It's a good warm-up for ranked. Let me know what your favorite part about this event is in the comments. I'd love to get a conversation going. I'm excited. I think that Ubisoft is cooking something up here, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do moving forward. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Deuces.